Glendora, I want to thank you for this opportunity to make another video here. This is the latest version of the American Bleak House. Now, to the people, Glendora asked me to do this video since another $13,000 was withdrawn from my husband's estate account without any notification or explanation. There may be some items here that I'm doing it for effect. So I will continue to make everyone aware of any events that add to my nightmare, the story of my life, to educate people, since most people are in the dark. As I mentioned in my previous videos, the bank had simply withdrawn $600,000 out of the estate account, which they had no right to take. I don't know what judge gave them the right, but we now know about their relationship with the judges. I know they did not follow my husband's will and wishes. 1 month after death, my husband explained that I was to have $500,000 legacy to keep me going for living expenses. They actually asked me to use my personal savings until they got things worked out. Well, like many of us probably, we would trust them. And I trusted them because I had known them and met them many times. So I trusted them and did as they asked, since they indicated I would be refunded. As far as the legacy, they didn't pay right away, and they paid in 2 separate payments after some time had lapsed. However, they made sure that they got repaid in short time for another $500,000 loan of my husband's. I'm not against paying debts. However, they liquidated at least $7 million in stocks and could easily have paid my $500,000 instead of me using some savings of my own that they never paid back. They sure take care of themselves. So they paid themselves quickly right away, and they had me waiting. And then they didn't even repay me. So, okay, now Glendora, to top it off, I couldn't believe this past month of May 2021, they simply drew out another $13,000. They never contacted me as an executrix, widow, and principal beneficiary. In fact, I was told at one time, David Kiko, the lawyer who represents the bank to cover for Wynn Rutherford of White and Case, stated that he would not meet with me or any of my team. Who is he working for? Do they have any fiduciary position? Now, one can understand why I filed disciplinary complaints against David Kiko. I'd say he is very arrogant. I guess that's what you expect from someone representing a convicted federal felon, namely Bankers Trust / Deutsche Bank. For the Southern District of New York, their case number is 99-CR-250. It appears their criminality keeps growing deeper and deeper. In fact, at one point, it was suggested by an anonymous source who was a Deutsche Bank senior executive that I write or ask for a risk manager to work out all the issues. Now, when I wrote Brandy Goldenberg, an attorney, also a trust officer in the bank in charge of sending the statements for the estate to me, asking her for a risk manager, and she wrote back effectively stating I could not have a risk manager, and any questions I had I could send to her. Well, I now know everything I send to her is forwarded to David Kiko, who loves me, who doesn't want much to do with me, even though I'm a legal executrix, widow, and principal beneficiary. Now think again, who is he working for? I have asked Ms. Goldenberg in good faith in October 2010 to send me proof of Bankers Trust Company / Deutsche Bank's authority as an executor in the McCormick estate. Ultimately, Ms. Goldenberg in January 2011 forwarded a copy of a court document entitled Certificate of Appointment of Executors dated January 21, 2011 by regular mail. Then in her letter, she states that the certificate shows Deutsche Bank Trust Company America, formerly known as Bankers Trust Company of New York. Then there was a comment in the letter. You could have gotten this yourself. I'm telling the world this certificate is a criminal fraud, as the records will show. How many others have they done this to? Then many years later, in 2014, several of my research team were going through the estate files in the court and discovered a letter and a sample certificate form that had been from Mr. Kiko requesting from the bank how the certificate should be filled out. That ultimately Brandy had sent to me. It appears, and I believe, that Deutsche Bank and their attorneys are acting in a criminal manner by shifting the names around so no one can understand it all. I suggest, since this is all part of an ongoing fraud, if anyone wants to know or understand more, and if you have time and are interested in all this, you could go to my website, which is McCormickEstateFraud.wordpress.com. I'll repeat that, McCormickEstateFraud.wordpress.com. Now, because of what they have managed to do to me and others, is more bad faith from their unclean hands, who should lose their licenses and go to prison. Now, taking $13,000 more after the $600,000 from a widow, executrix, and principal beneficiary is some more hard-earned money that is not theirs. They were merely custodians at best. Also, basically, in my opinion, in 1989, they clearly hijacked my husband's estate and have continued to plunder the estate to this day like pirates. I really mainly blame the attorneys representing the bank. They think they have the world in their hands. Actually, the law firms we are speaking about are part of the magic circle. Since the permanent letters of testamentary of 1989 do not list Bankers Trust Company, dated January 25, 1989, as executors, everything they have done is null and void by law. I wrote 2 trustees about the $600,000 they took, and of course it was handed to David Kiko of Pillsbury, and he basically did not answer my questions as to the documents I wanted to see, and stated in brief, it's going for legal fees and commissions. My question is, what legal fees? What commissions after 30 years? Where are my legal fees as an executrix, paying for myself and my stepchildren, who also did not get near their full inheritance? The children and I received a very small portion of the amount we were entitled to from a multi-million-dollar estate. And when Rutherford of White and Case, who drafted the will, said there's so much money in this estate, it will never run out. What happened when, as we were told, when we went to you people were top in your field? And why did you add the widow and principal beneficiary that I am is last to get whatever is left, all contrary to my husband's wishes and his will? He discussed it all with me. Now, folks, don't take it personal. I have it written here. I don't think they care. I'm just revealing this to alert you as to how they operate. They grab everything they can and help their friends with the real estate as I now understand, and we continue to put the puzzle together. I must add, my husband had some valuable real estate, and their performance was something you would not desire. One real estate company my husband dealt with phoned me and asked what happened, since they had offered much more for one valuable piece of property. Well, I understand they sold it for much less to their newly appointed property managers. After they dealt with Eddie Jr., the IRS stated to us that Eddie Jr. was not entitled to any property. Now, they, as I understand, filed no tax returns on these properties. These criminal acts are in their DNA. What can you expect? But it does not excuse them. I'm basically saying all this and giving this information to educate people who are completely unaware of any of this, as I was. Now, going down the steps at the Dutchess County Courthouse, the lawyer, Kiko, called out to me, "We'll give you $250,000 or you get nothing." As I recall, I was with my last young attorney who really didn't know what to say. What arrogance, again I say, from David Kiko. By the way, a little knowledge, it's just a little knowledge, for whoever's listening to this, but Mr. Kiko nor my attorneys ever informed us that Deutsche Bank had to notify their insurance company of any settlements or claims over $9 million. We didn't know that either. We learned this from a source in the bank. I also remember when Leo Malonis, a partner with David Kiko, a Pillsbury law firm, stood up in court and said to the judge, Moskowitz, "She is trying to put the bank out of business," referring to me. Of course, it's laughable. Why would I want to do that? Basically, the lawyers are effectively having the bank commit suicide by delaying settlements and bankrupting estates with their legal fees being dragged out for decades. And I mean decades. I know they lie and deny. The lawyers get paid when everyone else is losing, including the bank. This reminds me of the Bleak House story written by Charles Dickens, which changed British law. The lawyers, with their delusional egotism, think they run the world. And I believe that was discussed once on 60 Minutes. William Wilkie, the head of the trust department, said, "We never thought Mrs. McCormick would picket and protest." Well, my husband warned them in regard to me and said, "Still waters run deep." I guess they didn't think he was serious. My husband also worked hard and would on occasion say, "They think we are drowning and we keep popping up," when he had certain problems going on. They want me dead. However, I don't think I'm that important to them. Can you imagine how they run their business? They work behind the curtain so their dirty laundry does not surface. Sometimes my husband would come home upset and tired and say, "You have no idea what that world is like out there." And as I said, I didn't. I did my music, which he loved, and he protected me from all the snakes. Deutsche Bank's total criminality liability, as I was told, was capped at $19.1 million. And any amount over that would be paid by the U.S. government taxpayers. This was told to me by a Federal Reserve employee while we were picketing, and as I understand it, was well over $500 million. The Labor Department requires Deutsche Bank to apply for exemptions in order to manage ERISA pension funds. As I said in my videos, Ralph Martinelli, the Westchester owner of the newspapers, was concerned about my nightmare and met with Judge, namely Albert J. Emanuele. He was the one before Judge Scarpino, who came in around 2001. and he asked Judge Emanuele about the McCormick estate. Judge Emanuele admitted that there were two serious matters in this estate. Number one, which a lot of people do not know, but White and Case abandoned the estate. Why did they abandon it? Because they were representing Bankers Trust on a repayment of a loan of my husband's of $500,000. They were representing Bankers Trust. So he said legally they abandoned the estate. However, they still kept charging and trying to get paid. Number two, he would not reveal, the judge would not reveal, because he said it was extremely serious, and he just wouldn't. Mr. Martinelli kept begging him, please, please tell me. No. However, with Martinelli's research and my team, they found out it was the letters testamentary that listed Bankers Trust Company of New York, which was not nominated in the will and was not in existence until 10 years after the death of my husband. The will nominated Bankers Trust Company, not Bankers Trust Company of New York. Of course, the bank and the attorneys were pretty sure no one would discover this, and they figured if my lawyers discovered, they would not reveal it. Now, as I said in my videos, letters testamentary, by the way, are like the Bible to an estate, and if it is not correct, it makes everything else null and void. I can't imagine what my husband would do if he came down to earth now. He mentioned that some of his and my relatives were ripped off by the banks years ago, and he would make sure that he would not be robbed by a bank. I believe that is why he had 5 executors, and he didn't imagine that they would end up grabbing for themselves when they saw how White and Case was mishandling things in the estate and what they all could get away with. Actually, White and Case, let's admit it, they abandoned the estate. What did they care? As long as they got what they wanted. All right, Glendora, now by the way, presently, court documents dated in 2015 list David G. Kiko, a lawyer, as the estate attorney. Well, how can he represent the estate when he's representing the bank? Okay, so we have all these problems. All these, namely lawyers and bank people, must have read the Bleak House story, and then they used that Bleak House story as a playbook to rip off estates and trusts. I'll list some examples just to make our audience, the people that are listening, aware of how the judges and banks and lawyers in our present day arena operate or work. I had one victim that, because we picket and protested, we met a lot of people. One victim, a Bankers Trust, told us that he told William Wilkie, the head of the trust department at Bankers Trust, not to sell the stock in the trust. William Wilkie agreed. Fine. Well, guess what? He sold it immediately, causing a large tax loss for the trust. Did he lose his memory? Number 2, when Judge Barone, in my case, demanded I hand over $410,000, which I did not owe, 2 things were wrong. One was, as my attorney said, I really was supposed to get $100,000 back since the children settled for little, and I was, paying for their legal fees. Judge Barone admitted the bank was behind all this. It wasn't his fault. Secondly, incidentally, another judge, just to tell you the background, the other judge had my case, and he had ruled in my favor. And then Judge Barone grabbed the case from him and reversed the decision since he had a hot potato he wanted to cash in on and ripped me off for the $410,000. Now, this was explained to me because someone had seen it. It's too bad. They get caught every once in a while, So, now another incident or problem we learned later, and none of my attorneys alerted me to that was that Judge Barone was in the Supreme Court, and a case for legal fees, which was what mine was about, should have been in surrogate court. However, we all know, of course, surrogate court could be just as bad since it's all arranged and fixed. As Judge Barone admitted to my attorneys, the bank was behind this. So now you see how these people operate. I'm pointing this out just for people to be aware of what goes on in the courts. I wish they would clean up the courts. Another example about the legal situation is when my stepson did his illegal dealing, such as not presenting the real estate books. Then there was an embezzlement in his office, and then, believe it or not, the books were burned. And as I told, he had 3 sets of books. Now tell me, why wasn't he removed as an executor? Now at that point in time, I thought the bank and White and Case were running the show, because I'm sure some people will say, well, why didn't she speak up? Well, at that time, I really thought these people had it where they were going to run it themselves. They knew about all this. I thought they were in charge. So anyway, in any of the decisions, Eddie Jr. was not held for anything. Now we all know this was fixed. Also, I might add, Eddie Jr.'s lawyer was a former law partner with one of our judges, Albert Emanuele. So the fix was in. Actually, one of Eddie Jr.'s staff got a jail sentence. This woman who embezzled some estate funds in Eddie's office. And of course, I don't know why he wasn't in control, but so I remember when Rutherford stated, when I said, when Eddie wouldn't turn over the estate books, I said, well, why don't we have the books subpoenaed? And he said, oh no, the judge doesn't like these kind of problems. So basically, Eddie Jr. pulled a swindle with the real estate, getting 2 buildings when the IRS said he wasn't entitled to any buildings, plus was not held for any of his office activity going on. Now, in addition, 1 month before death, my husband was crying actually, and he said, a man never cries. And I probably mentioned this before in one of my videos. But when he found out Eddie and the president of his company were taking money under the table, he was so stunned by it. And I say too, what was going wrong with when Rutherford and the bank, when they let Eddie go way over the option period that the children and I objected to? Wynn and the bank, as I understand, spent hours in Eddie's office trying to work out a scheme with him. My husband explained very carefully to me the option period he put in the will because he knew Eddie would try anything to get the buildings, and he was not entitled, and he couldn't afford it because of the capital gains tax. I understand Eddie was an operating manager also, not an owner or a partner, as the IRS had explained. This is how I understand all of it, so I'm just revealing how these things go. However, when Rutherford of White and Case, as I said, abandoned the estate and figured no one knew, so he collected huge legal fees. And the bank was not listed as a legal entity on the letters, so basically it was all null and void what they did. So I figure one criminal helps the other. Criminals think alike. However, I thought White and Case was far more knowledgeable about criminality than Eddie Jr. However, all the criminals were together and they saw a large pot of money. So fraud mitigates everything. We know Eddie should have been removed as an executor based on his activities. Internal memos from the bank came from trust officers at Bankers Trust that Wynn and the bank should take control. Why didn't they have control from day one over all the executors in the meeting and so forth? Well, they abandoned the estate, let's face it. The system is corrupt, and it's, even if you go to court, I'm saying the whole system is corrupt. The judges, lawyers, and the banks are all in the corruption. They, the bank and law firm, gained their confidence by wining and dining, which they also did, before my husband died. They wined and dined us and got, so-called my confidence up that I trusted them. And they gave us a white glove treatment. And then they ripped us off. Their confidential policy at Bankers Trust, by the way, as we found out from an inner source also, is a market segmentation, which is milk, exit, and ignore. Now, I know I mentioned this before too, but they milk the estate, then they exit the estate, and then they ignore the estate. And that's how they teach their help, is what they do. In my opinion, all lawyers, judges, and bank persons should be subjected to psychiatric testing, on a regular basis. Glendora, I know you understand this whole injustice and abuse which people are subjected to. And in this way, you encouraged me to tell my Cinderella story that turned into a nightmare due to the corrupt judges, lawyers, and banks. And they must be held responsible. Here's a conclusion written about justice in the Constitution of the United States, which was handed to me. Establishing justice is one of the core mandates of the Constitution. It is one of the bedrock of any society. Thus, established justice, legality, and constitutionalism can survive and thrive. It is the foundation upon which any functional society is created. And then I have a thought here. I'll end up by quoting Winston Churchill in the darkest days of World War II. He said, never, never, never give up. I thought it was very insightful also, I must say, when Putin of Russia, when asked what he thought of the situation between the United States and China, he said, I'm a monkey looking down and watching from a tree limb. Very clever. I believe, and Donald Trump is similar in intelligence and clever with his insight. Okay, I am a believer and would like to read a piece written in the Bible. I know Glendora is also a believer and reads scripture to me often. This is a Psalm of David, and it says in Psalm 7, verse 14 to 17, they are pregnant with trouble and give birth to lies. They dig a deep pit to trap others, then fell into it themselves. The trouble they made for others backfires on them. The violence they plan falls on their own heads. I will thank the Lord because he is just. Sing praise in the name of the Lord Most High. Well, thank you very much, everyone, and I hope everyone learned something from this. Thank you.
A chat with Glendora, a show for living right. A chat with Glendora makes your day so bright. Words of inspiration, jokes to make you smile. Come relax and chat with Glendora.